The spring pack goes here. All right, and the pump shaft that I mentioned earlier comes up through here.
It sits flush.
Yeah, and anyhow, it comes up through there, and then there's an acorn nut that holds it on the top. And when the bottom half of the pump shaft has threads on it, and there'll be a washer assembly and a threaded nut on the bottom. That is going to hold the bottom end of the shaft fixed in a fixed position. So now the spring pack is up top here inside the plate, and when you tighten down on the nut, it is pulling this plate down against the cold plate.
So it holds it tight.
And the springs are actually help pushing it up to keep it off the bottom. But when you are tightening the acorn nut down, what you're doing is you are essentially specifying a gap between the bottom grooves of the plate and the cold plate below. And that gap is important because if it regulates the flow of the chocolate around the spiral grooves to the center, and then once it gets to the center, the wings on the pump shaft pump it away through a horizontal pipe and up a vertical pipe to the enrobing head. If the chocolate hasn't spent the proper amount of dwell time, say if it moves too fast or too slow, the chocolate is not going to be properly conditioned when it gets up to the enrobing head.
It won't be tempered properly.
Exactly. Well, actually, the chocolate is conditioned here. It is not tempered.
Okay.
Tempering goes on in the enrobing head.
Okay. So that's the agitation.
Yeah. Yes. When it gets up into the enrobing head, there is a section up there that holds about 6 to 8 pounds of chocolate, and there's agitation going on up in there that provides the final stage of tempering. If you were to take chocolate out of the horizontal pipe, there's a valve at the side, before it reaches the enrobing head, the chocolate will not be in temper. But it's conditioned, and that chocolate is close enough to do certain things that are not critical, like for instance providing bottoms to make cherries or strawberries, which we spot the belt with. Conditioned chocolate coming out the side is good enough, especially when you're putting a frozen piece of candy on it like a strawberry. Also for patching, certain things that we do, like strawberries, we have to make absolutely certain, because it's a liquid center, that there's no holes in the chocolate coating, or else the juice will leak out and you have a bad product.
So conditioned chocolate, not tempered chocolate.
Conditioned chocolate is okay for patching before the final coat. The final coat of chocolate always has 100% tempered chocolate on it.
Dad, go.
Okay, question for you. You've been focusing on refrigeration for your problem. Is there any chance that your spring pack, your seals, whatever, were bad on this and you didn't have the proper dwell time?
That is exactly what I'm thinking, which is why I went back to saying change one thing at a time. This is the old spring pack. This is the new one.
Do you see why I asked that question, guys? Dave's been focusing on the refrigeration because we think that's what it is. But what if it's...
Listen.
There's a good chance that that's, because of the heat.
The springs in here, or the concave washers and so on, are fatigued. And it's not... They're loose in there. It's not providing the proper spring tension that a new one, which is still tight, will.
And also, on that, is there a pounds pressure you have to put on the...
Actually, no. How it reads in the manual is that you're supposed to put an amp meter, tong the drive motor, And when it reads a certain amperage that it's pulling, you know you have...
I hate Germans. German engineers.
Yeah.
German engineers.
You know, so, but anyhow...
We'll edit that one out, don't worry.
Yeah,
But if we did that and got that reading with a new thing, we could then put a
Set a
torque
torque
wrench
rating.
on there and maybe come up with a pounds per square inch.
That's true, because in the future, or I mean, this is when the manual was written here, and I had problems with it because that's what the manual says, but in real life, you turn the thing on and you tong the thing and it's reading like 1.8 amps that it's drawing, and no matter where you turn that thing down to, it's still reading 1.8 amps that it's, you know. So I called the engineers up and I said, you know, what should I do about this? And they basically said, oh, well, it's just pretty much you just tighten it all the way down. Oh, okay, all right,
there's no-
thanks. You know,
there's no
so,
thing.
but there's actually, there is another way to measure it. These units, the tempering unit underneath is called a 100F. Remember I mentioned before that the units were called UT 280 for the width of the belt here and UT 320 over there. That is for the optional
Millimeters.
enrobing head that we have on top of it. The tempering units down below are called 100Fs. 100 for kilograms, and that is the production capability that they have per hour, which is about 220 pounds. It's capable of producing 220 pounds of tempered chocolate per hour. So, what we've done in order to gauge the proper flow of chocolate through the here, or the dwell time on here, is that after we get this thing full of chocolate, we will put a bucket on the side of the machine and get the chocolate near tempered state, temperature-wise, and you put a bucket on the side, you tear out the bucket, you turn the thing on for you know, a minute or 30 seconds, and you do the math, and you want to make sure that it's pumping the correct amount of poundage out that would come to pretty close to 220 pounds an hour, which if you take 220 divided by 60 is what, about 3.5 pounds, something like that.
So, per minute.
Right.